This panel alone could run for 4 hours. So Ellie, I'll hand over to you and let's show people what Australians can build out.
Thank you so much, Steve, and welcome everyone to the We Are Gonna Make It panel. So my name is Ellie Rennie. I'm a professor in the RMIT Blockchain Innovation Hub. And I'm joined by some terrific speakers today. I have Kieran Warwick, who's the co-founder of Illuvium, Dave Mack, who's the lead investor at Koji Capital, Desai from OpenLaw, just a little note that she's filling in for RMIT today, and Robbie Ferguson, who's the co-founder of Immutable. So NFTs have given new form and meaning to what we call culture, at least those of us who come out of a cultural studies background. This is not just about art or music, but about all the things in our orbit that bring us joy or give us a sense of shared identity. Things like fandom, genres, subcultures, things we like because they are amusing or because they are new, or because they help us to remember, to reminisce, and to inspire us. But we don't just consume culture. Culture, of course, is when people collectively decide to direct their attention to something, to give it value, and then they produce new innovations from that consumption. So the cultural economy is also an input into other markets and industries. Never forget that. Culture gives markets meaning. This has always been the case, but now we have new tools that are decentralized, accessible, and tradable. In no small part, thanks to some of our panelists here today. So because we do not have time for introductions, we've got to figure out in the next half an hour if we're going to make it and how. I'm going to launch straight in. And my first question is to Robbie. So first of all, congratulations on a fantastic raise and token launch. Well done to you, and feel free to tell us a little bit more about Immutable. But my question to you is really, what is the metaverse? And is it more than games? Is Immutable expanding into more than NFTs? Help us get started here.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone will have a slightly different take on what the metaverse is, especially over time. To me, it is the entire world is becoming digital. We've seen this trend over the past 3 decades, and over the next 3 decades, I fully expect the vast majority of especially young people's time to be spent in digital environments. They will grow up in online schools. They will play games and self-actualize in online marketplaces and online games. And gaming is becoming much more than just something you play. It's a way you connect with other people. It's how you live your social identity. It's how you literally watch a concert. We had the largest, attendance concert ever was held in Fortnite by Travis Scott. This is the kind of culture-defining digital environments we're seeing today. And that begs the question, we have lots of rules for living in the real world. We have the rules of physics, which says, I own things or I can't own things. People have governances around scarcity, which is all built in by the laws of the universe. So what are the laws that we're going to use for this new digital world? How will these assets connect? How will they be interoperable? And that's a lot of lofty stuff. But the real crux of what we're facing now is, how can people have guarantees over digital property rights in digital universes? What is securing them under the hood? What sort of scarcity rights they have? At the end of the day, it's the fundamental point and the fundamental innovation of the blockchain. So that's what I'd say. The metaverse is, does Immutable have plans to go beyond games? Absolutely. We're really bullish on gaming, as I know, some of the people on the panel are. And that's because I think we've seen a bunch of really high value, scarce NFTs pop off this year. So we've seen art and collectibles be the dominant theme. And that's come with a lot of backlash. It's come with a lot of controversy. Why is a CryptoPunk worth at minimum $1 million? Why is there a $10 billion market cap on this stuff? And I think there's real value there. I think it's phenomenal. But I think we're going to start to see the shift into utility-driven NFTs, mass-driven NFTs, where it's everyday people understanding better value from their digital experiences, whether it's gaming, whether it's finance, via NFTs. And that's the space we ought to be helping expand into as well. So yeah, we're really excited about games. We're really excited about collectibles, but I also think NFTs are going to encompass the entire universe. And we're excited to be part of that infrastructure.
Fantastic, thank you. Kieran, are you there?
Yes.
If so, excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. So Illuvium, I was just checking your Discord last night to see how it's all going over there. And you have 135,000 people or more on your Discord, mind-blowing, and a token of significant value as well. And you're combining DeFi and NFTs even before this game has launched, which is so interesting to watch and observe. So what I want to put to you is just expanding on what Robbie's already said. Why give people real assets within a game? But also, I'd like your reflections on why bring a high-end games lab to this equation right now?
Yeah, so look, obviously for me personally, I've been a gamer all my life, right? And a lot of those have been MMORPGs. I got addicted to World of Warcraft. I played Guild Wars. I played League of Legends, and the common factor that was frustrating for everyone in these communities is that you literally spend you spend hours and hours and hours grinding in these games, and effectively you own it inside your account, but you don't truly own that, right? You can't take it outside of that game, and so and you can't sell them. And so people for the last 2 decades have been meeting up on corners of the street and saying, hey, I'll give you $10,000 cash if you give me some World of Warcraft gold. And so gamers particularly have been wanting something like NFTs where they can actually have true ownership over their assets for so long that's why I think we're seeing this massive trend of in my opinion, games that the games that are available now are more so in the indie sort of quality if you compare it to mainstream, but they're still drawing in millions and millions of players. And if you look at what's under the hood with that, why is that happening? And the first thing is play to earn, right? This new model, which is actually giving people the ability to sell that, to grind and their sweat equity that goes into a game can then be turned into a profit. And so we're literally seeing in places like the Philippines, people leaving their laboring job and saying, I'm just going to sit on my phone for 15 hours a day and I'm going to earn these assets in these games, and then I'm going to sell them and I'm going to make a profit. And we're even getting to the point where some shop owners are now accepting some of these native tokens. And so it just expands games out, and it gives the ownership and the control back to the players, which I think as soon as you do that, and that's obviously what we've tried to do in our protocol by making it decentralized from literally even pre-token, we had a council set up, and that council essentially governs our protocol and decides the next steps and the next games we build and all the improvements and whatever, and giving that total autonomy and power back to the actual people who are playing makes them go, A, this is so much more fun and exciting, but B, I'm now willing to put in so much more money into this because I know at the end of the day, 5-6 years from now, if I go, okay, I'm no longer a Fortnite player and I want to move into playing Call of Duty, I can then sell my assets and I'm not just leaving a large chunk of money on the table and all of my time on the table. You can be rewarded for that. And I think in our case, what we've been trying to build, what the gap that I saw was it's such a compelling thing, this real world ownership of assets, that these smaller games are blowing up. And so in my opinion, I thought, let's go out and literally start poaching AAA talent from all these studios from around the world, Blizzard, Riot, Epic, Ubisoft, and put them all in a room and then come up with a game which we're calling, you know, the first AAA game on the blockchain, and then adding, you know, at the exact same time, not bolting it on, but from literally inception, having decentralized governance over that and play to earn. Right now, we're set to give out $500 million in in-game yield at this point, right? That's the distribution of our tokens. And so we think when you couple all of that together with a game that people are actually really, really interested to play, and they get addicted to it and all that kind of, you know, jazz with a real mainstream game, then you're going to hit, you know, that's when you get real world adoption of potentially, you know, there's 2.8 billion gamers. We could start seeing millions and millions and millions of players coming into the crypto space for the first time, just because they understand gaming, and it just makes sense.
Amazing, thank you. And I encourage everyone to go check out the cinematic promo for Illuvium, because it is spine-tingling stuff. I'm personally very excited to get stuck into this game. So Pri, welcome. And thank you so much for filling in at the last minute. So Kieran's just already spoken a little bit about governance, but it'd be great, as one of the OpenLaw people who have gone in and pioneered governance through DAOs, and including through Flamingo DAO, which was clearly one of the early and most important DAOs in the NFT space. So my question for you is, I mean, what is the importance of easy legal frameworks for these communities, but also how does that lead to innovation? I've noticed that Flamingo DAO was partly responsible for punks getting up and walking around. How did DAOs and governance lead to innovation?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. All this talk of gaming makes me want to LARP as an Australian. I've been working on that joke for like the last 5 minutes, so I hope it landed. Anyways, no, you guys are awesome. I love the folks down under. Anyways, so I think like the advantage of having a DAO that's kind of rooted in meat space and the real world is, you know, sometimes if there's just a little bit more organization, people understand their role. You know, with the original DAO back in 2017, or 2016, an incredible credible kind of experiment, there was a lot of uncertainty. People may not have known the structuring, what the token meant for them, whether that was a security, and the fact that, you know, if there were a potential liability, it could be but not just, you know, limited liability, but personally liable. And I think kind of having that root in some sort of meat space allows for a level of certainty, which can lead to innovation. Like just working through the confines can sometimes just lead to beautiful things. So with Flamingo, as you noted, probably the first NFT DAO. I think we've seen a ton of amazing NFT DAOs really flourish since then. We've had members of Flamingo really like think about the NFT ecosystem. They kind of bucket it in 4 major buckets. I can kind of just run through that. It's like digital art, collectibles, metaverse gaming, and then lastly, just general NFT infrastructure investments. And that's kind of led to this like interesting thing where like people have really, there's some people who are more attracted to one bucket or another. We've had like Flamingo itself now incubate its own DAO. So I know you guys being in Australia love Zedrun. They have a Zedrun stable DAO called Dark Horse DAO that kind of came out of the Flamingo ecosystem. They just launched a digital fashion DAO. You know, they've launched Ready Player DAO, which is a play to earn DAO, where, you know, people all around the world can borrow these assets and play with them and earn. They also are like launching a DAO rooted in building out the metaverse too. So I think like having that membership so tight and cohesive, rooted in the real world, they're able to just like really think through things, feel comfortable, and, you know, things are pretty well organized, and you know, people's interests are accounted for, and so it offers people the flexibility to really do what they want and run with things through this hive mind approach. I think what you're talking about is the CryptoPunk alien that was purchased by Flamingo, which, I mean, I don't know if it like, I mean, this, I don't want to gas it up, but I do think like Flamingo really at the time decided that CryptoPunks like meant a lot to the generalized ecosystem. The thesis was that, you know, in the world where, you know, the belief of the DAO was that there's going to be trillions of NFTs, there, you know, there has to be something to this like OG CryptoPunk collectible. Plus they look cool. Like there's a lot of reasons why they went in on that, and the alien was available. They said, why not? And I think that kind of just like kicked off at least like a little bit of the punk excitement. And one of our members, who's awesome, decided to take that CryptoPunk alien. He kind of just did this on his own, like created he has like a Zoom avatar for the alien. He did a 3D rendering of the alien body that walks around in the metaverse, and it has like this pretty like wild personality on Twitter as well. So I think like beyond, you know, people collecting NFTs, there's a lot of creation that's happening, both like creating these and incubating DAOs with specific focus, but also like taking these NFTs and like really running with the intellectual property of them, like really like making them intellectual in some ways by creating personalities. So yeah, I mean, I think having some level of structure just frees people up to like really pay attention to fun stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. And I want to come back to some of that in a minute. But first, over to you, Dave. So how do you're an investor in this area. How do you know what will make it? So when you're choosing to invest, what is it that you would look for? And I suppose even more importantly, what is it that we're even supporting when we enter into this world and this economy?
Well, that's a heavy question, so I don't really know where to begin. I think probably from our perspective, we're, you know, investment managers, so maybe taking some of the shine off of our other guests. I guess I've been amazed by Flamingo and the Lao and how successful they have both been for, you know, at picking trends. I think it's pretty clear that Flamingo was the linchpin for the last NFT cycle, or at least in our view. Perhaps I'm biased. So, I mean, when we consider what's important to invest in, I think, yeah, aside from the fact that the internet hive mind is actually quite a lot more effective than most managers at picking the next trend, we typically look for very engaged communities. In general, I certainly don't think it's a good idea as an investor to fall into the trap of you know, thinking that the capabilities of technology are isomorphic to what the market wants. I think it's clear that that's not the case. So yeah, I mean, again, founders like, you know, Robbie and Kieran have clearly identified clear business needs and are using, implementing commercially blockchain tech to attack those sort of problems particularly. And maybe, you know, coming back to the left, because I don't know really how good I'm going to be for you or how useful I'm going to be, you know, telling you how to make it. I think maybe, you know, people should sort of, you know, assess their own strategies on a case-by-case basis. But I did want to return to what Pri was talking about earlier about having the sort of the legal boilerplate in place for DAOs. I think that's been an extraordinarily positive and helpful thing. One of the key risks, I suppose, that you entertain if you're anyone investing in any DAO or being a participant is the fairly reduced capacity for redress of disputes. You very much have to you're in the hands of the gods. You sort of can only hope that the DAO will reach decisions that are favorable for everyone. If there is a legal retainer there, in the case of Flamingo DAO and the LAO, there's a Delaware LLC where, again, every member is KYC. So you have some greater faith that if things really were to go bottom up, there would be still some ability for the rule of law to be applied. So I think, yeah, we're definitely excited to see DAOs become more sophisticated at that level. They seem very siloed off into the crypto realm. For example, I don't think that there's a great presence of DAOs having bank accounts at this stage, for example, but there's no reason why that shouldn't happen. And having genuine legal personality in various jurisdictions. So yeah, I'll jump off there.
Yeah, thanks so much. I was listening to a Mint and Burn podcast, which we do out of our research center with Aaron Wright, where he talks about DAOs as subreddits with treasuries, which I think really gets to the, the importance of the community and the power of making it easy for people to coordinate. But okay, so we've got just a short amount of time, and I want to put a question, I suppose, to anyone, all of you, which is really to where decentralization fits in for all of you here, and particularly Ethereum. Loot has been the big phenomenon of the last month, and that really showed, I think, that people can coordinate in a decentralized manner around a primitive, something that was nothing more than some code that points to a thing that could be repurposed in many different ways. And what it showed for me really was that there was legitimacy already established in Ethereum and ways of working, and things like fair launches and, opening something up to a community and allowing that community to self-govern. So maybe we'll start with Robbie. Like, what is the importance of decentralization in this scene for you in terms of us trying to understand where it's going? And can we make it with this very decentralized, dispersed thing that we've set up for ourselves here?
Yeah, very good question. I think decentralization has to come first. There's literally no point to anything we're doing if at the end of the day, the blockchain is going to break. Someone can take your stuff away from you. If a bridge between a side chain and the main chain is going to break, and then users' assets is compromised, like, there's no point. Go build Steam Marketplace, build a centralized database, use a bank. The fear of decentralization is not helpful because it only matters when it comes to like real financial resolution. And we'll see a very broad spectrum. It's hard to decentralize things. Like even DAOs are a great example, or back with the classic hack in 2017, where you had Ethereum kind of hardcore people, proponents against the hard fork, saying code is law, we shouldn't change this. Now, in the end, the consensus was split off to a new Ethereum, and I think that was the right choice. But it shows the trickiness here. But for us, it's like paramount. I know for Illuvium too, like the reason is not just security, but the reason Ethereum's being so successful right now is just network effects. It's just liquidity. Like, they have the biggest developer platform in the world. It's steamrolling everything else. Any other blockchain who's ever having any success, like, they're buying those users, and it's really just the open internet versus everything else at this point in time. So I think by far the two biggest things are like, A, interoperability. So everything built on Ethereum works with everything else. We saw this cool example with Loot. Like, it just crazy the pace of innovation you can have when other people can clone, and the dangers, right? Like, Uniswap had half the liquidity stolen overnight when someone issued a vampire attack. That stuff does not happen in the normal world. You can't have flash loans, but that is what means that you have like access to capital and barriers to entry is at an all-time low. Now, anyone with an ARB strategy can go grab a flash loan and start to create efficiencies in the market. But absolutely, like, liquidity is king, security is king, and network effects are king. And that's why we're pretty bullish on Ethereum. It's why we would never compromise in building our layer 2 like scaling for anything that compromised on that.
Kieran.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously, we're building on top of Immutable X. So Robbie and I go way back in crypto terms, I think 12 months now. But yeah, look, for us, I mean, there's so many, we're so decentralized, and we did it so early that I've literally coined us as the first decentralized autonomous studio. And so there's a lot of things that I could talk about with us, but I think that the biggest thing, the most impactful thing that we've done, and I honestly haven't seen it yet in any other game that's out there, and I think there are some other projects that are coming out that are going to take this model. But I was so obsessed with DeFi and decentralization that I thought we need to make sure that the profits in our game are not distributed to a centralized entity in any way, shape, or form, right? So in our case, the tokenomics are built in a way that all of our in-game revenues, that the travel fees, the enhancements, skins like in Fortnite, all of those things that generate a heap of revenue, that goes into our vault, and then anyone who's staked in our protocol gets their proportion of those revenues back. And so we're literally distributing all of the revenue back to the players as well. And it feeds into this psychology of I own the assets, and not only do I own the assets, when I sell the assets, I get my share of profit, and these contributors to these DAOs, which are literally community members as well, they feel like they have a piece of ownership of the game. And so you look at, people say to me, how are you valued at $5 billion? And it's like, yes, that's crazy. And yes, I'm a little bit biased. I think we're building a pretty cool game that I think people will play. But I think by far and large, the biggest thing is it's not a centralized entity that's saying all of these profits are going to Riot, right? Where it's one company, the players don't get anything. It's the same thing in Fortnite. And instead, with us, we're literally saying 100% of profits are redistributed back to the stakeholders. And that alone, I think, has just blown the minds of people, and they're going like, well, every game needs to take on this model, because and if you went to when people ask me, they're like, do you think these big studios would do that? And my opinion on that is absolutely not, because think about how scary that would be for them. Hey, stakeholders, we're now going to give it all back to our players. It's kind of freaky. But it's the reason we've been able to bootstrap so much liquidity into our protocol so quickly.
Fantastic. We've literally got 2 minutes. So Pri and Dave, what's your very short answer? Pri first.
Go for it, David.
Well, I mean, I would mirror a lot of the statements that came before me. I think, yeah, it's easy to talk about all of this stuff, but at the end of the day, if the layer one isn't distributed and doesn't, inherit the security properties that are super important, then this could all be a fool's errand. On, I guess, on the previous point where people feeling like they own a piece of a platform is just as important as whether they actually do. I think the fact that protocol generated rewards are accruing to DAO token holders is a very different view of the economy that I don't think anyone has any context for prior. So I guess I have my closing remark would be, we're definitely excited to see where this all goes to next.
Great. Pri, final word from you.
Yeah, I guess just to top it off, I completely echo what everyone else is saying. I think it's just like incredible to think about the world that we lived in gaming and the metaverse, and being able to I think what's kind of incredible about this is taking assets from one place to another, being able to play with assets from one place to another, really having almost just like an interoperable universe that feels like, you know, your game like Fortnite or what have you was so locked in, and to the point Kieran made, I mean, most of that value was trickling up to the game itself versus like the individuals who have a piece of it. And then through that, we're seeing innovations like play to earn and others. And I think that's pretty incredible. The Ethereum community, as also echoed by Robbie, has just been, you know, probably like the best developer community as far as Web3 is concerned. I think we're also seeing a lot of really interesting innovation from other blockchains. So that's exciting as well. There's some really cool art on Hen, on Tezos. Like there's just a lot of really interesting things happening across various blockchains. And I mean, I think we can all agree here that decentralization, no matter like what it looks like, is no doubt the future. So.
Okay, and finally, one word answers only. If you could choose your NFT spirit animal, would it be a punk, a rock, a bored ape, or let's say a penguin? Choose one of those four. Okay, Robbie.
A punk, but I can't afford one.
Okay, Kieran.
A punk, but I can't afford one.
Okay, Pri.
I mean, definitely a punk.
Okay, Dave.
For the sake of controversy, I'm going to say a penguin.
Okay, a penguin. I'm going to say again punk because I'm fully derivative. Thanks, everyone. Terrific panel. And thanks, everyone, for listening. See you later.